And welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie, and I'm so glad you're here, y'all. We are talking about something that's very, very near and dear to my heart. It has so many tendrils of meaning for me, going back to when I was living at my parents' house as a kid, and also just over the years, so much of life as it unfolds. I think so many times in the unfolding, we come to realize what our values are in a way that maybe we wouldn't otherwise, until our values are challenged, until we realize what we were taking for granted when it's no longer there. Even today, I was talking to someone on my team, and we were talking about how so many times our values are actually subconscious to us because we just take for granted that that's the way things are. And then when we start experiencing something else, we're like, oh, oops, like I didn't even know that that was something I cared about. And as we start realizing our values, as we start really coming into almost like the folds of adulthood, and we start waking up and we start realizing, oh, I didn't know that that mattered to me. I didn't know that I cared about that. I didn't know I was impassioned in that way. Our identity starts to form in a way that we never experienced before. It was so subconscious before. You know, when you watch a kid, they are just vibrantly them in so many ways. And they don't have to think about, well, who am I? They don't have to think, am I walking in alignment with who I am and the integrity, being authentic to who I am? They don't think about that they just are. And so when we talk about identity, this morning we were talking about it on the morning show as we were moving through our daily Course in Miracles lesson. We talked about it yesterday as well. And so we've had this theme over the last couple of mornings and days around who are you and what is your identity? And one of the most fun ways to see and just kind of catch a glimpse of it is to return actually to who you were in childhood. Who were you? And what lit you up? And who were you when you were uninhibited, when you weren't worried about what people would think, and just totally free? And so as we talk tonight around this topic, which I just love, how to walk in your identity, how to walk in the fullness of who you were created to be in the first place, there has to be a nod to, okay, well, who am I? Who am I to begin with? Who was I created to be? And I'm just excited for this conversation, and I'm excited for you all joining me tonight. We're going to be talking about the principle of walking in our identity and then the practice of it. In most every single conversation, there's the principle and the practice. And so we're going to be covering both of those tonight. But before we do, I just want to jump into the chat. Brian J., I'm so glad to see you. Randy Jake, hello. Sir Bobby, thank you for joining. The Cobb, hello. Thanks for coming on here. Y'all, we're here to do the work with the Knowing Show in terms of what the point is. The point is that you and I are cultivating our human intelligence. There's so much obsession around AI, artificial intelligence, but it's like returning to the basics, returning to you and me and the integrity of who were we created to be in the first place. And let's go ahead and cultivate that. And that's why we jump on every single day, morning and night, to have these conversations so that you and I can really walk in the fullness and begin creation. When we think about on the other side of doing the work to kind of discover who we are, I think of it in adulthood today. When we think about who we are, I think of it as, you know, Michelangelo, who made the most beautiful sculpture, David. It's in Florence. And people asked him, like, how did you create David? And he said, I just removed who David was not. And so much of that work to come to know who we are is doing that, is removing the layers, removing the excess. But then from that point, from that like integrous point of us being like, okay, authentically who we are, now we can create. Creation is on the other side of authenticity. Once we really come face to face with ourselves, once we actually know who we are, then we can start to create and be like the one we were created after. You know, God is the greatest creator that I've ever seen. And now we get to co-create with him and co-create with each other. But if we're all wrapped up in wondering who we are and wondering what we're called to and why we're here, we're not really able to set our sights on something further ahead outside of us because we're focused on the past. And because we're so caught up with like the internal anguish sometimes over the pain unresolved. And so why we're doing the work is so often for the purpose of, yes, walking in the fullness of who you and I were created to be in the first place, but also to create, to add to the world, to contribute, to create and make this world a better place for our being here, for our presence. We were talking this morning, you know, the lesson yesterday was lesson 61. Today's lesson 62 because we're on the 62nd day of the year. The lesson yesterday was, I am the light of the world, and just cementing in our minds and hearts that our identity is partially, yes, who was I created to be? What's kind of that authentic self, returning to childhood and looking at who we were uninhibited. But then also, what is the identity that was given to me by God that is effectively the identity for every single son and daughter of God? And the child of God identity plus our identity of kind of like our own human nature, combining those and having both work in concert together is so potent and so powerful. It's like bringing our full personality online and bringing in the full identity of who God says that we are, and bringing those and marrying them together so that they're working together rather than divided, where it's like we're like, okay, well, who am I? And then, okay, well, who does God want me to be? Rather, they're kind of one and the same. It's like two sides of the same coin. And so as we're having this conversation around identity, definitions really, really matter. And so when I'm saying the word identity, I'm talking about the fullness of kind of your own human nature, your own personality, your uniqueness, coupled with the identity that God gave you to every single one of us. Each one of us has an identity rooted in love that is unshakable, fully worthy, no matter what. And so it's marrying those two, and ultimately, how do we walk in both? Just jumping into the chat. Good to see you guys. Anthony, Anna Rude, hello. 4748, hello. DJ, my nemesis. Wayne, good evening. I'm so glad you're here. Oliver Moore, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but red lipstick doesn't suit your face, especially your eyes. You know, I just kind of wear it because I like it. I wasn't wearing it for complexion, but I'm glad you said that. Thank you. I will keep it in mind. I probably will still wear it because I like it, but I will be more mindful. Juice, I broke my leg this morning. Oh no. Wait, did you? I don't understand. But he says he was at Waffle House. I'm going to be rich. I guess you're planning to see Waffle House. That's so funny. I hope your leg's okay if you actually broke it. I don't know if that's some metaphor for something. Anthony, hello. Moodasare, good morning to you. Good evening from me. MDC, hello. Oliver says, go for a soft pastel brown. Man, I freaking love this. Thank you. I will. I've never bought a brown, so I'm excited. Ruben, hello. Good to see you. I feel like it's been a couple of days. I haven't seen your name on here. Grace Allen, hello. Thanks for joining. Down Better Believe, hello. Man, Oliver Brown, I'm just so impressed. He says, no lipstick and just a wee dash of eyeliner. Y'all, I'm getting taught how to do makeup. Thank you. I actually have never really been a makeup aficionado, so I'm excited to learn. C. Martin Love, hello. A central command is to cast all your anxieties on him. 1 Peter 5:7. This implies a literal throwing or transferring of the internal weight onto a strength greater than our own. I love that. DJ, my favorite David sculpture is by Gian Lorenz Bernini. Oh, I have not even heard of that. I need to look that up. All right, Tommy, hello. Tommy Schaefer, y'all, is in the house. Bam, any day I can catch Christene Marie. I'm so glad. Live is a dang good day. I'm so glad you're here. Jason, thanks for joining. All right, y'all, we are going to talk. Chris Scott, just wanted to say hello to you, my friend. Shag, B Camp, hello. Kevin, Brian, the Cobb. The Cobb says he likes the red, so. Ben, hello. All right, y'all, we're going to dive into this conversation, how to walk in your identity. And I actually have a question for y'all. I love this question, and I'm really, really excited to see your answers. Frankly, it's been fun getting to know you guys, so I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about this. My question for you is, when you were a kid, think under the age of 10, And ideally, I think of it as like a happy time. I would love to know, who were you when no one was watching? Who were you when you really felt free and alive as a kid? Like what's an example? What's a moment in your mind if you were to like think back and take yourself back to a moment? What would that moment be? Who were you? And so I'm excited to see what you guys have to say, because I just love this question. And I would really, really love to see what you guys have to say. All right, so go ahead and drop your answers in the chat. Who were you before the world told you who to be? Who were you before the world told you who to be? Mr. No, thank you. Good morning, Hilly. Down Better Believe. Love above all. Bob, I was Superman. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. DJ says happy. Bruno says happy. I love this, y'all. And I'd love to even know if you guys are willing to kind of get specific, like what did happy mean to you? What did it look like? Like how did it show up? Oh gosh. M hiding in the bathroom doing things that probably we weren't allowed to do. Mr. No. So I remember is when I was a kid, the fondest memory is playing in the top of the dining room taper in my die-cast cars with my die-cast cars. How cute, being on the top of the table. I love that. Just a nerd, Ruben says, I love it. Tommy says, just by myself and playing in the dirt is the first thing I thought of. I love, man, being outside, right? Oh, gosh. Yep, same thing. Billy says, in the woods, walking my dog, far away from school. Oh, I love this. Oliver says, I was a bus driver. I loved the idea of pretending my bicycle had passengers behind me and I was in charge of their travels. I love that. Oh my gosh, Bruno, CEO. Were you pretending to be a CEO? David, all in. I love this. Jake, I'm so glad you're here. Aisha, hello. Thanks for coming. Mr. No, innocent and unlimited imagination, I would say for most. Unlimited imagination. Y'all, isn't that so true? We're talking, for those of you who just joined, we're talking about effectively like the hallmarks of your childhood. Who were you before the world told you who to be? And what was like the happiest? What was the happiest? It doesn't have to be like this big, massive moment, but when looking back at childhood, when were you just happy? And how did you feel? Like, what did it look like, feel like for you to be a kid? And what were you doing? I just love these answers. I was innocent and naive. Ignorance is bliss, not ignorance is missed. AJ. I actually completely agree. Ignorance is bliss, completely. Ben, loved riding my bikes, pretending I was Evel Knievel, jumping over stuff. I love it. Oh, fun. Andrew, Will Smith casually walks out into the audience. Oh, man. I don't know what you mean here. But the quiet, do you like rock music? I do. Bruno says game over. OP Holistic Services says free spirit. I love it. Mr. No, pure innocence and unlimited imagination, living in the moment. DJ, I can recall imitating the swamp fox, Francis Marion, or Nathan Hall, acting as a patriot. The British are coming in the woods with a stick and a rifle. Oh, I love that. Honestly, isn't it the play, like literally acting? I think that, I don't know how many people found joy in that, but man, we would come up with the best games. It was so inventive. It was so creative. See, Martin Love, going and walking through the woods, hunting for more mushrooms. Oh, I love that. Ruben, I was actually trying to be a carpenter. I wouldn't have hired me then, to say the least. I love it. Just looking down here. Thank you guys for joining. This exercise is it alone is a lesson. I'm having the hardest time thinking of times or memories when I was under 10. Y'all, isn't that so fascinating? Tommy, I so appreciate you saying that. I think that the degree of access we have to that little kid in us says a lot. Because the thing is, that little kid is still there. I realized I wrote this in my journal. So for those of you who are just joining, we did this. I asked people, what was the happiest time when you were a kid? Like, who were you as a child? And there's a lot here to do with nature. There's a lot here to do with just being free to like imagine and dream. There's an innocence as well. And what I realized when I was still married, I wrote in my journal. I wrote in my journal, I love bows and pretty things, but I wear all black to keep me safe. And what that showed me in hindsight, kind of looking back, looking at who I was as a child versus who I ended up becoming during my marriage, were two very different people. And there was a big disparity. And a sign of health is not that we always look like how we were as a child, but it's identifying, okay, this is who I was when I was healthy as a kid. I was free, I was imaginative, I was creative, I didn't care what people thought. For me, it was like I was really expressive in just loving beautiful things and loving the sky and loving like pretty red lipstick and just being really, really creative and expressive in that way. And then as I got older and more unhealthy, I actually wore dark clothes as a sign to literally keep me safe, where I like wouldn't be noticed. I wouldn't have to deal with I just wanted to be small. I didn't want to have to deal with people judging me. And so I even told my therapist at one point, on the other side of my marriage falling apart and my life falling apart, I told my therapist, I was like, I would rather not be known than be known and judged correctly for who I really am. Like, there was just such a deep, deep desire to stay hidden than to be known and not loved. And what that revealed to me was that there was just this big disconnect from me being able to actually be confident and really, really authentic, like true to who God created me to be. I had just this narrative around, if people see me, they will no longer love me. And that had been kind of my experience. Like, I got married and that's kind of what happened. And so now it's the question of, okay, well, first, what would it look like for me to recover the lost part of my identity? And then second, what are the narratives getting in the way of me doing that? So this question of who were you as a kid is kind of that first step of, oh, like I forgot how much I loved that part of me. I forgot how much I loved doing that activity. I forgot how much freedom and joy I got in, in creation or drawing or art. Because here's what's so fascinating is that sometimes what was lost, once we recover it, we actually can usually remember our purpose in a sense. Like, we can remember our superpower. We can remember the things that very much so make you and me unique. Because if we're going to walk in both parts of identity, for those of you who just joined, we were talking about how there's like very much so the human identity, the personality, the parts of us that are thoroughly unique from everybody else, that comes from how we were actually created to be in the first place, but also just our experiences. What have we been through that have cultivated our values and deepened our giftings and our strengths? And then there's this other part of our identity, which is, who does God say that we are? And this is universal. This is for every single child of God. And that is, you are loved. It's, you're worthy. There is nothing you can do to separate you from the love of God. It's like you've got this identity with also the identity of, you're an amazing human. and so it's not, there's this concept in, I've seen it both in very traditional religion, but then also in kind of this new age world where people are like, oh, I am actually just going to move away from the human part of me to the extent so I can go and be like God in all things and just not have any care about this world and not have any care about any person and just like go be God. But man, we were made like God in so many ways, and we were also made human. And there's so much in this human experience that is very, very joy-inducing. Like what so many of you were saying, going out and being in nature, like playing and imagining and actually acting and doing these things as kids that frankly we haven't touched for 20 years or more. I went sledding with my niece a couple weekends ago, and I was climbing up the hill in, the snow garb, and I could just tell my cheeks were flushed. And I was like, man, when is the last time I had flushed cheeks from playing? And it was just the most wonderful day. And in that moment, I realized how much recovering play is so critical for us to be able to return to those parts of our, like, kind of, I think of it as kind of like the human identity and the spirit identity, the God-given identity for both parts. But really, it's up to me in so many ways to cultivate this unique, authentic personhood that, yes, I'm made in the image of God. Yes, this is who he says I am. And I'm also intended to fulfill on a mission that's very unique to me and nobody else has it. Isn't that awesome? And so then it's, okay, how do I be the fullest of both pieces so that I can be the strong nucleus around which everything in my life orbits? Like, we're not the center of the universe, but we are the center of our lives in so many ways, right? Like, we can go and be the best version of ourselves to then go and love people, and be the best version of ourselves to then go and give and raise our children, and be the best version of ourselves to heal from the past so that we can be a good partner. All of those aspects come after the cultivation of ourselves, walking in the fullness of our identity. So when we're talking about the principle, that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about the identity of who God says we are as a child of God, and then who God made us to be as a unique individual that is unlike everyone else. And so it's the cultivation of both that really amalgamate into our identity. Just jumping back here in the chat, Husa, hello, good to see you. Being yourself and not trying to be something more is one of the keys to enjoying your life better. Oh my gosh, yes. Oliver says, reminds me of an old saying, it's better to be known badly than not at all. And that's exactly where I found myself. I was known by nobody, much less myself, out of fear of like being known badly. But I've since come to realize that it's better to be known badly than not known at all. Tommy, I just love you. My heart glows when things I say spark thoughts in you, and you go into, I just love it. Yay. Sergeant Joe Smith, first, thank you for your service, sir. Yeah, he says she doesn't want to be known, as she says on YouTube Live. That was honestly, I still confront that a little bit today, but I think I have a much stronger sense of, I feel at peace in so many ways with being known, and I still don't want to be judged. Like, that's still a part of me. I would still prefer not to be judged. And at the same time, I've seen that if I'm willing to be brave and step into the arena, like Theodore Roosevelt talks about, I'm always going to have people point and be the critic every time. But there's always also, from my experience, going to be people just like every single one of you here in the chat who are willing to do the work and be in their own arena. And then it's like, we're like high-fiving in the arena, like, man, go freaking get it. Let's go. And there still is required courage, no matter how familiar we are with the arena. And so this question that we're addressing tonight, how to walk in your identity, I love that you brought that up, because that is a tenet of walking in your identity. How to do that? Well, we have to be courageous. We have to have courage. There's this biblical concept of the righteous are as bold as a lion. And so if we are in fear, I think that fear can serve as a mirror. Am I actually not walking righteously? But if I am walking righteously, then I have every right to be walking in power and love, and another biblical concept, in a sound mind. Like, I get to harness and leverage every single bit of my identity as a child of God that positions me as a light in every room, as a city on a hill, as loved and worthy every time, and also leverage the personality that I've been given, the experiences that I've been given. And every single one of us has this. And so how to live and walk in your identity requires courage to face the past, to remember. In fact, this week I'm dedicating to copy editing for my book. And I have this line in there, part of knowing requires the bravery to remember what happened, to go back to the past and come square off and come face to face with those demons or those things in the closet that we hid for so long. I love the analogy of like the tip of the iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, and beneath the waters is so much more. And I felt like I lived with just like the tip of the head of the iceberg was like my head knowledge, my IQ, my intellect. Like, I was only operating from up here. And I never allowed myself to go beneath the surface to engage on an emotional level because I viewed emotions as weakness. And I really shamed emotional action because I had never seen real good produced from emotion. And I just never was taught emotional intelligence by any means. And so there were no tools. There was so much emphasis on the IQ that when it came to EQ, I just had hardly any value for it. So I just love that you said that, Sergeant Joe. You know, it requires so much courage. Robert, good to see you. Christopher Adams, nowadays I strive to be the version of myself that 8-year-old me would be proud to look of and look up to. Be proud of and look up to. I love that. That's so beautiful. Perez Hugh, good to see you. DJ, we are more similar than we would all like to admit. Isn't that the truth? Oh my gosh. Marco, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Thomas, he says, I bet you play with dogs. I definitely played with dolls when I was a child. Who said, thank you. He says, I love your openness. Thank you so much for that encouragement. Darren, hello. Mark, KV, director, hello. DJ says, I don't even know what the best version means because that would be subjective. No. You know what's interesting? I actually think that I think yes and no. So effectively, DJ is asking, isn't this question of the best version of me, isn't that subjective? And I actually think that there's an element of going to, like, literally me looking to God and being like, who did you make me to be? Yes, son of God, child of God, got that identity. Nice. Like, I can look at the Bible and see all of that. But I actually need divine personal revelation for God to tell me who he made me to be. And it doesn't need to be some spiritual, like, revelation. I actually can see. I can see the strengths that he's given me. We were talking this morning and yesterday around ego. And so many times we think of ego as a self-glorification, but sometimes ego can actually come in and take a self-abasement in a way that actually isn't really humility. It like masquerades as humility. Whereas ego is, what did you say? Someone said this yesterday. Ego is, it was an acronym, edging God out. I loved that. So really, so much of what comes naturally to you, what would it look like to harness that? You know, our greatest shadow is often our greatest light and vice versa. So the things that make us shine really, really bright often have a proportionately large shadow. So you can kind of get to know yourself by asking that question. You know, what am I really ridiculously strong in? What comes naturally to me? Also, what are the shadows? You know, like one of the things, just to be honest with you, I've always been terrified of ego. I've always been terrified of pride. Growing up in the church that I was raised in, there was just this real narrative around the pride goes before the fall. And like, don't even think of yourself. Like, don't even, in fact, a woman who grew up in that environment, she's 59 years old. And she said she looked in the mirror and looked in her eyes for the first time. And she didn't even know she had green in her eyes. So that's the environment I grew up in. But on the other side of that, I really do believe that on the light of that, you know, so that's the shadow. The shadow is this like dreadful fear over becoming an egotistical monster. But then on the light of that is that, man, do I love people. And man, do I feel like I have this mission that feels so much bigger than me. And I know I can't do it alone. And I know I need other people. But like, I know that God made me in these certain ways. And so, yes, I've got to watch out for the shadow for every single category and every single area. But it's really important that as we're considering what's the best version of me, that we're not allowing ego to masquerade as false humility. Because really, I think at the end of the day, if each one of us were to really be completely honest, I actually think that we know where we're really beautiful and where we really shine. It's just a question of, are we allowing ourselves to see the beauty as well as the darkness? For me, it's always been easier to look at the darkness. It's more comfortable. It's more safe than saying, yeah, I'm really good at this. And Kevin says pride is the deadliest sin. Mint, good to see you. So the question is, do we have like trust in ourselves and trust in the protection of our ultimate shepherd to be able to analyze that which is good and beautiful, that brings a blessing to other people about us, and not think that in that we're just going to all of a sudden get completely corrupted from within. And I really didn't have a strong trust relationship with myself in order to do that, and that had to be cultivated. Sandy Osborne. How interesting. Marty Jr., good to see you. I don't know, Mint and Marty are talking about some stuff that we're not really, that's just not really conducive to the show. So I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on timeout here in a few minutes, just because we want to kind of maintain the integrity of what we're talking about. But I'm glad you guys are here. And I would welcome you guys to engage in more meaningful conversation. Okay. Tommy, I love this. The great lights and shadow. What things do you do to realign or reconnect with what you thought was the best version of yourself, but lost it? What a good question. Vertical alignment. Vertical alignment, the principle. So we're talking about principles and practice. So now I want to get to a practice. Vertical alignment is, to talk about the principle of it, vertical alignment is the process of, it's the practice of really, really kind of getting every part of me into, it's like bringing my beliefs, my behaviors, all these disparate parts. The way that I actually thought of it for the first time was last week. So we talk about you and I are the nucleus. And inside this nucleus, there's like our personality and our beliefs and our mindsets and our behaviors, and there's all these disparate parts. But when you and I bring all of those parts into alignment, it's like the nucleus remains. I have my little thing here. Our nucleus remains, and then we bring all these disparate parts, and then we bring them into alignment. So now we have alignment, literally kind of like shooting up and down into the ground, into the nucleus. And now every single part is into submission. But it's into submission under what hierarchy? So at the kind of at the apex, at the very hot center, at the very top of this line is my own ideal of what is, to your point about best version of myself, what is my ideal? Who do I want to be? Because here's the thing, the best version of myself may not have entirely existed yet. I actually may have parts of me that I want to cultivate that I've never seen manifested, but I know that I can be that way. For example, I never woke up early, but I actually have found an experience. I was like, let me try this, because the top 1% of people wake up early. So let me actually try to implement this practice. So as I implemented the practice, I actually was able to train my body, my mind, my soul, my spirit, and bring that into alignment, but in the training and in the cultivation of this practice and of this habit. And so vertical alignment, the principle is to bring every part of me into submission underneath the hierarchy of my values, underneath the superordinate principle of who does God say I am. That's the ultimate truth. So God is at the highest pinnacle of the hierarchy, but I also have identified, who do I want to be? And I think that that's where the human freedom and human choice come into play, where it's like, man, we're not just AI robots, And so what a cool thing that we have so much power to really have the ability to say, okay, this is who I want to be. This is who I feel called to be. And I'm going to co-create with God and partner with him in fulfilling that. So vertical alignment, the practice of it is waking up early. It's taking time to read, meditate, pray, even work out. It's effectively the time where I awaken and turn online, bringing every single intelligence into the boardroom. So intelligence being intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, physically. When all four of those are awakened online, it is wild how present I then am able to be throughout the rest of the day. And so vertical alignment is one of my biggest and most important practices. Another practice, I wrote my eulogy a few years ago. And that's been really, really helpful to remind myself of who do I want to be at the end of my life? What do I want to have said about me? What do I want to have said about me by different people? How do I want to engage with the world? What do I want to have accomplished? And then reverse engineer it and work backward from, okay, this is kind of the future. And then how do I need to live today to get to that point? Just looking back here in the chat. Ansley, hello. Michael Grimes, good to see you. Shashank, where are you from? I grew up in Maryland, actually. Kevin, seek guidance from God and ask his guidance to be the warrior he needs from me. So good. Bank Top, hello. Monta, thank you. Old White Witch, happy to be here. Good to see you. If you had a chance to, I don't know. Okay, so let's keep going. I'm just looking down here. Gary, thank you. Sean, God's messenger of peace, hello. Vertical alignment, who God says I am. Y'all, if you guys go to verticalalignment.com, I have 21 days. This was something I created around my birthday, just as a gift for friends. I've hosted a number of knowing retreats, and every time after the retreats, people would ask for these because I would give vertical alignment exercises every day. And so I just created a 21-day series. So go to verticalalignment.com if you want to. I don't sell anything. So I would love for you to fill that out. But how to walk in your identity is doing the work to really first identify, well, who was I created to be in the first place? Who does God say that I am? And then what are the narratives and programs that are keeping me stuck from being able to move into that? And so much of that work, asking those questions, I love doing it on a morning basis. And in that vertical alignment time, asking those questions, but then also through journaling, through prayer, through listening and asking God, like, God, please show me, like, I want to learn something new. Let's freaking go. Like, I want to be better at the end of today than I was at the beginning of it. And so then in the journaling and the prayer and the seeking and listening, it's also, okay, I'm going to read my eulogy. And I let this practice go over the last year. And so I need to bring it back. I just found my little pink journal yesterday. And so y'all, I think that would just be such a good practice at the end of today or tomorrow to write your eulogy. We are 2 generations removed from no one remembering us, DJ says. That's a perspective shift. Christopher Adams, I will check it out. Love it. Brian, good to see you. I'm going to answer Brian's question. Y'all, this is, it's not really related to the topic tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and pin it, and let's all answer this, and then I'm going to actually hop off to go make dinner. What is your biggest red flag in a relationship? So I'd love to hear y'all's feedback on this. This is just kind of how we're ending the night. I'd love to hear from you guys. What is the biggest red flag? That's such a good question. And here's something that's interesting. I think my biggest red flag actually has to do with the topic at hand tonight. You know, like, man, how much of a red flag is it when the other person does not see you the way God sees you and does not honor you and encourage you to walk in alignment with your identity? I think that's probably my biggest red flag, because people are going to screw up 100%. But man, if they're not seeing me as God sees me and then calling me back, you know, it was a really, really profound moment with my darling last year. I said something and he was like, you know what, that doesn't sound like you. And instantly, it was the most kind way to like bring me back. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, that's not who I want to be. It doesn't sound like me. And it was just the most gracious way. But it was because he was helping me return based on my identity, based on who God says that I am. Tommy says, yes, write your eulogy. I have a daily Stoic calendar. I love that. And today's message was, first say to yourself, what would you be? And then do what you have to do. I love that with respect to writing your eulogy. I love that. The world values ambition through anxiety of money or saving. Then I read how the Israelites tried to save manna and how Jesus taught us to consider the sparrows. He teaches us to walk in trust. Jody girl, good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I love that. Living in trust. And it really is, it's both, you know, it's living in trust and it is doing the work, you know, being faithful. I love it. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Brian says being respectful to others. Man, isn't that so true? That's so, so, so important. To not embody who God intended for you to be, I'd say, is a red flag, but thankfully not permanent. There's always a way out, and that's Jesus Christ. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I will see you tomorrow on the Knowing Show. Thank you guys for joining. Actually, I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Y'all, tomorrow night, I had trivia scheduled, and I have an event tomorrow night that I need to go to. I think I'm going to be doing it earlier in the day. Let me pull up my schedule. Let's see. I have an event at 7 Eastern. Could you guys do 6 Eastern tomorrow for trivia? Or honestly, I would probably, maybe 5:30. Is 5:30 too early for trivia? We could do 5:30 to 6:30 tomorrow night. Trivia has been so fun, by the way. I've just been having the best time. So let me know, y'all, if you guys can do 6:30 Eastern tomorrow for trivia. No, 5:30. I'm sorry, 5:30 to 6:30 tomorrow for trivia. Let me know, and then I am going to schedule that for that time. I'm just looking here in the chat. I love it, Tommy. You're the best. Wayne, wow, it's hard when people don't or can't comprehend who you are. Word. All right, y'all, let me know about tomorrow night, 5:30 p.m. trivia. I will see you then. And also, for those of you who want to join A Course in Miracles tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., I will see you then. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.